Hi everyone, welcome to J&S King Family Farm and welcome to my kitchen. I'm happy to have you here today. My kids asked for muffins, and so I've been looking for a good oatmeal muffin recipe for a long time. I've tried a lot of them and they're always kind of dry and kind of crumbly and kind of meh. And so I've been digging through some of my older cookbooks, and I have to say, I've dug this one out. And this is a reprint. This is the Better Homes and Gardens. I call it the Red Plaid Cookbook. They call it the New Cookbook, but I've always called it the Red Plaid one. And my mom had this cookbook, 1953 edition, and it was tattered and the cover's missing, there's pages missing. And when I was a teenager, one year for Christmas, my mom found this, I think at Chapters or something, and it's a reprint of the original 1953. So some of the measures are a little odd. It's American, so if you're Canadian, some of the stuff doesn't quite line up with our can measurements. And it's also got those really fun, sketchy things that you're like, we shouldn't be eating those. And I'll show you some of them because they're really kind of funny. Let me see here. Appetizers and beverages. So first of all, every chapter starts like this with the wife serving the husband, which I find hilarious, until you get to outdoor cooking and the man is grilling. And I find that hilarious because growing up, my dad didn't grill. My mom did all the cooking, dad didn't grill. So I always found that highly entertaining. Now my husband does a bit of grilling, hot dogs, hamburgers, that's kind of it. If it's more involved like steak or smoking meat and stuff like that, I do that. So I always found it really entertaining. So, and then the other thing that's in here, that's just absolutely, you've seen this on Facebook, I know you've seen it go around. It's this glorious pineapple. Isn't that awful? It's liverwurst, I think. I think that's what it says. Hold on here. I'll read in the center, liver sausage pineapple. Yeah, nobody should be eating that. There's lots of jellied salads in this cookbook as well, but there's some really great recipes in here. Now, I will say some of the ingredients are probably things that you don't want to use today, or maybe a little more sketchy. There's lots of vegetable shortening in the recipes here, and that's remnants of post World War II. So during the war, butter was rationed and butter was sent overseas to the soldiers. And so people had to learn to cook with vegetable shortening. And vegetable shortening became very, very common in cookbooks like this. And so for the recipe we're doing today, I have found for the most part I can replace it with butter, and it's not really an issue. So today, I've got to find it now, I'm going to do some oatmeal muffins. Because I've been digging and I finally found one and I tried this. And this is just, and I've lost it now because I took my finger out of the page. But this is just a fantastic recipe, 117. See, now I know it's in breads. I think this was on page 74 or something like that. There it is, page 80, oatmeal muffins. So you can see the pages are meant to look really aged, but this is the recipe here. And I will put a copy of this up down in the notes so that you'll be able to copy this recipe and you just look at that instead of scrambling to write it down while I'm talking. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this because books like this, now this is a reprint, and I have some other reprints, but I love vintage cookbooks because they cook with real food. They don't use packages and things like that. They use really basic ingredients. And we're gonna make these oatmeal muffins today, and they have quick oats, sour milk, I'm gonna use buttermilk, but they have sour milk, 1 egg, brown sugar, shortening, and I'm gonna change that for butter because I don't have shortening. I don't have it very often. Flour, baking powder, salt, and soda. And most people have those things in their kitchen. That's a real basic recipe. Now, I'm going to pop some chocolate chips in it this time because my kids asked me to. So, but without them, it's a perfectly great recipe. I think you could actually, you might be able to replace the fat with applesauce. I haven't tried it, but that's fairly common. It could be, you could change the texture though. But you could put apple pieces in there, and that would be really good. Or if you used a chunky applesauce, it would give you a nice texture. I'm gonna put a pinch of cinnamon, and I think that's what we're gonna do. So, but I highly recommend looking for vintage cookbooks. If you have the opportunity to find cookbooks that are like 1960 and older, even if you get into the 19th century, the late 19th century, you're going to find there's a lot more simple ingredient, easy to make recipes that don't use a whole lot of dishes, don't use a whole lot of fancy implements, because nobody wants to haul water to wash that. People didn't have the money to have those things. So I think those are the cookbooks that are really worthwhile looking through. And again, this is one of my favorites. It has the best peanut butter cookie recipe. And I'll tell you, my sister has the new version of this cookbook, and it's not this edition. It's not this is a reprint of 1953. Hers is a modern version of it, and the peanut butter cookie recipe isn't the same, and it's not as good. And because she made it once, she was so disappointed because she had found the book, and I remember when she called Mom and said, what's the recipe in your book? Something's wrong here. So you have to watch that when you move into newer and newer editions of things. Sometimes they change the ingredients and they update it, and latest and greatest isn't always better. So let's get started. We're going to make some muffins. Okay, so we've already turned our oven on to preheat to 400. It takes a little bit longer for me because I keep a pizza stone in the bottom of my oven. I find things cook a little more evenly, so I just leave it in there. I'm also going to use cast iron muffin pans, and I like to heat them up a bit with the oven, because if they're stone cold when you're putting the batter in, I find things don't cook as evenly as they could. So I'm actually going to pop those out and put them aside so they're not super hot. I don't want them to be completely hot, but I do want them to be on the warm side. You don't have to use cast iron. You can use just whatever muffin pan you've got. You want to use liners, use liners. This is just a really basic recipe. So the first thing that it calls for is 1 cup of quick cooking oats. And so this is my container of quick oats. Whoop. And I want to show you the difference. And this is my container of just regular rolled oats. I don't know, I think you can see the difference there. And so you want to use quick oats, not old-fashioned oats, not instant oats. You want to use quick oats. And I've already put them in here because the next ingredient is a cup of sour milk. Now, I've used buttermilk. If buttermilk's what you have, use it. If you don't, sour milk, if your milk's gone a bit chunky, that's what you want. If you don't have that, you can take a cup of milk and add a tablespoon of white vinegar, not cider vinegar. It has to be white vinegar. Or you could use lemon juice and let it clabber for about 15 minutes, and it'll actually get a bit chunky, and that's sour milk. That'll do it, okay? Because this recipe is going to rise with the reaction of the buttermilk or the sour milk and the soda that is in it. So it says to mix 1 cup of quick oats and 1 cup of milk and let it soak for an hour. And I think that's the key to this recipe just being so good. So I've done that already, and you can see it's here in the bowl, and it's been sitting for an hour, and now it just looks like leftover oatmeal. It's really thick and kind of loose, but I promise this is really good. So the next thing is 1 egg. So, and it says 1 egg and beat well. So you probably should break it into something else, but I took a risk. These are our farm eggs. You don't have to use farm fresh. I recommend finding a farmer and using farm fresh. If you don't have your own chickens, but store-bought, it's just great. All right, so that's that. 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I like dark brown sugar, so that's what I always have around. Dark brown sugar simply has more molasses to it. If you don't have any brown sugar and you only have white sugar, you can make brown sugar with white sugar and molasses if you have both. But if all you've got is a light brown sugar, no problem, use a light brown sugar. Half a cup of sugar. Put that aside. Get this mixed. Now at this point it doesn't call for it, but I'm going to use it because I really like it. So I'm going to put, you can put a pinch of nutmeg. I much prefer whole nutmeg, and if you've ever used it, you know that it's got just an entirely, this is what nutmeg looks like. It's an actual, it's a nut. And it smells so good. This smells entirely different than the ground nutmeg. If all you've got is ground nutmeg, use ground nutmeg. But if you have the opportunity to buy nutmeg that's whole, it keeps a lot longer, and you can just grate it in. It's really good on eggnog, and we're getting to that season. So I'm just going to, that's it, grate a little bit in. Where did the lid? There's the lid. But oh, it smells so good. So I'm going to mix that in. And then the next thing, it says add cooled shortening. So that's the oven ready. It says half a cup of shortening melted and then cooled down a little bit because you don't want to cook the egg when you add it. I'm using butter that I've already melted and measured in the same measuring cup that I measured the sour milk in. Well, I use buttermilk because that's what I've got. So, a couple of chunks of brown sugar in here. There we go. Sometimes you get that. So I'm going to add this in. And then it says to add the flour sifted with baking powder, salt, and soda. So I'm actually going to do that in a separate bowl. You don't have to, you can sift it right into here. I can't actually have it on top of this because this is where my flour is. 1 cup of enriched flour. Where did I do with mine? My sieve. There we go. So I know you're not supposed to measure flour like that, but I'm going to sift it. I don't really care. So you can scoop it into your measuring cup and level it off the proper way. This works for me because I'm actually going to sift it anyways. And I'm going to add a teaspoon of baking powder. If you add soda, a whole teaspoon of baking soda, you're going to find a real taste difference because soda is on the salty side of things. So a teaspoon of baking powder and a half teaspoon of soda. And I'm just going to use the lid. Half teaspoon of soda. And a half teaspoon of salt. I'm using iodized table salt. You could use pink salt. You could use sea salt. As long as it's like fine table grind salt. We'll put that in there. And then we're literally just going to sift that through. And the reason we're doing that, see those chunks right there sitting in my sifter? That's actually from the baking soda. I'm just going to push them through. There we go. And what it also does is it just lightens everything up. So we've got that mixed. Put the lid on this. Now the key with muffins, as with other quick breads, even cookies, you don't want to over mix. You literally just want to stir it enough to get all the flour incorporated, but you don't want to beat the heck out of it. That's how you get tough muffins. You want these to stay nice and light and airy. See, now that's a piece of brown sugar that's just rock hard. And as much as I think, now this is almost mixed, so I'm just going to grab some chocolate chips because my kids wanted chocolate chips. So there is no chocolate chips in this recipe, but I think we can get away with it. I'm not going to use a full half cup here of chocolate chips. All right. And just fold those in. Again, we don't want to over mix this. Yeah. And this smells just fantastic. There we go. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And I'm just going to grab my muffin scoop. I like to use an ice cream scoop for the muffins, and I find it's just that much more precise. Now these are fairly warm, but so I'm going to butter these. I don't tend to use the muffin cups just because it's just one more expense, and we could all use less of those, and it's a paper product that's not really necessary, and yeah, I'd rather not use them. So we're just going to butter these. Now I melted my butter in this nice little, there, because I'm wearing black, it's not helping. There, in a little cast iron sauce pot. This is what I usually use. And I happen to really like this thing for melting butter. It's so much nicer than the microwave because it doesn't splatter all over the place. And you just get a nice even melt on it. And it keeps it melted for a long time because cast iron holds just so much heat for such a long time. These are warm. This is warm. These I don't think I want to, no, they're too hot for me to be carrying around without a oven mitt on at this point. So, but they hold on to the heat much better, and I find the baking on them, they just bake so much more evenly. Okay, so that's that. And I like to work this way. All right, so 1 scoop per is plenty. You want to fill your muffin cups about 2/3, and that's enough because you want to leave it room to rise, but not float all over the place. Because what happens is, particularly this is a newer oven, and it has a fan. I can hear the fan running right now, even though it's not on convection. There's still a fan in there, and I find it kind of, muffins rise up and then they blow over. So it's not always ideal. So the last time I made these, I got exactly 12. It was perfect. And that's why I'm using these pans and using this, just gonna put that there for now. And this scoop, it just worked out really well. So, and it really helps to use a muffin scoop or an ice cream scoop because you get a really even amount of batter, and things cook better when you have an equal amount in each cup. All right. And then I'm going to scrape one more time here, and hopefully I've got just enough to fill this muffin scoop one last time, and I think I do. Might be a little small. There's no chocolate chips in there either. Someone will be disappointed. We'll just put a few chocolate chips in here. Scoop that back out. Mix those back in. and scoop that in there. There we go. Try and get every last little bit. This recipe doesn't quite make 12 even muffins, but it's pretty close. I think you could actually add just a little bit more oats. It's pretty good though. Just one muffin that's slightly smaller. This is not a lick the bowl recipe. There's nothing left. All right, that's it. So I'm just gonna wipe my hands here and grab my oven mitt. So these are gonna go in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. So last time I did them, I put them in the oven for 16 minutes and that was plenty. So we're just going to pop these in the oven. Set the timer for 16 minutes and we'll see you when they come out of the oven. So that's our timer for 16 minutes. I'm just gonna turn that off. And these look great. I've got a skewer and I'm just gonna stick it. These are kind of bouncing nicely. They're brown on top. Skewer's coming out clean. You just want to, if there's a couple of crumbs on it's okay, but you want to make sure that they're not gooey, like it's not uncooked batter. So what you can see is these, when you touch them, they bounce back. We're just going to leave them just for a minute. I'm going to turn this oven off. So these came out really, really good. 16 minutes for this size of muffin in these pans that I preheated. They probably take a little bit longer actually if I didn't preheat these a bit. But if you're using regular muffin tins, preheating's not necessary. So we're just going to try. The last time they just, come on, tipped right out for me. There we go. Oh, they smell good. Ow, chocolate is hot when it's melted. There we go. Ow, ow, ow. Clearly I'm not learning very quickly with that. And we're just gonna get them out of here. Because here's the issue with the cast iron, is if I don't tip them out, they're gonna keep cooking. Because the cast iron is quite hot. So, there we go. And that's it, guys. 12 nice sized muffins. These are great for the kids. They're not too huge. They're actually going to eat all of it, which is always the goal, instead of leaving half of it. I think this is a great recipe. I'll put it down in the comments for you. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. And we're going to try some more recipes like this out of some of my older cookbooks, because I think this is going to be a really great way to just use basic ingredients that don't cost a lot and make your food dollars stretch. So give it a try. They look fantastic. They smell even better. It's too bad you can't smell them through the camera, but they smell fantastic. And I'm gonna make myself a cup of tea and have myself an oatmeal muffin.